Hello, this is the Stories Beside channel. I release videos every day for you. Subscribe and click the bell. At 38 years old, Molly had never been married or lived with a man before. She had no time to have children either. And if before, the people around her now and then tried to introduce her to someone, teasing her with the topic of marriage, then recently left her alone. Molly was glad that she was finally away from her, although she realized that the real reason lies in the fact that she was simply put on the cross. Instead of her colleagues in the hospital switched to a young nurse who was only 23 years old. The girl was always being wooed and wished her a quick maternity leave. Why? No one could give a logical answer to this question. It's just a kind of collective sport. Her feelings about a year ago in the mind of Molly something changed, and she stopped thinking about how to meet the other half. And dreams of Prince Charming. She left, and that before the old Molly did not consider herself. Moreover, for health and figure followed, dressed with taste. And if it were not for relatives and friends who shook their heads, saying yes, Molly, the youth is behind, and so did not have time for anything, she would not have known grief. She got used to living alone. She created coziness around herself and adjusted her everyday life as it was comfortable for her. Of course, Molly tried to get acquainted, and men willingly got acquainted with her. And at the age of 19, she was even called to marry. But her mother, who at that time was still alive, categorically forbade her daughter to tie herself to the bonds of marriage. "You'll have time for it," Mother said sternly. As my grandmother said, the most bitter maiden life is sweeter than the best woman. Why do you have to get involved in this? You should learn to cook, do laundry, and get married. You'll get there. Molly broke up with her fiancé, but not because the wedding was canceled. It just happened that way. After that, the girl for a long time could not build a relationship with anyone, no one she did not like for some reason. And a few years later followed an extremely unsuccessful novel, full of experiences of vague feelings and groundless jealousy. Tired of riding the emotional swings, the girl got out of the relationship and was alone again for a long time. Then there was another affair in which Molly felt out of place. This was not her man, but everyone around her liked him. Marry him. Molly, marry him. The chorus of people close to her age, Molly. You're 29, Molly. It's time. But she knew if she married someone she didn't love, she'd be cheating both him and herself all her life. He might find a girl he could really be the universe to. And for Molly, he is just a good man, but not the hero of her novel. The relationship gradually fizzled out. They parted by mutual consent. But very soon the girl met a handsome guy, with whom it seemed to her perhaps a joint future. But the guy was not serious. Nina went out with more. Friends were more important to him than his beloved. He did not miss the opportunity to drink and joke, and sometimes he could go on a bender for 2 or 3 days. No, Molly loved herself too much to commit her life to such a man. You're gonna be lonely when you're like this, her friends told her. Have you even lived with him for a while to get a feel for it? What's it like? But Molly didn't need to live with someone to know if they were hers or not. She didn't need half measures and half love. She wasn't okay with it. It was all or nothing. She'd rather be alone. But marriage for marriage's sake didn't interest her. The only thing that seriously bothered Molly was the subject of children. She really wanted a child. She even thought of having a baby for herself, but then canceled the idea. All right, raising a child without a husband is nothing. A lot of people live like that. But how to raise a baby without a grandmother? That's really hard. And wouldn't that be selfish to the child? To deprive him of a chance for a full family? A couple of years ago, Molly registered on a dating site, hoping to find her destiny there. It was an interesting and enlightening experience. She had never received so many compliments from men. It was only later that she realized that all their compliments were the same for every woman. At first, Molly was euphoric. It seemed like there was a huge choice, and among this number of lonely bachelors, she will definitely find the one. But it is better that he himself found her, took the initiative, so to speak. But soon the rose-colored glasses broke, and she that the desired product on the site is not so much. Some men were only interested in bed. Others were married, looking for a mistress. Still others posted pictures from 10 years ago and came to the date bald with a paunch. Molly didn't mind the bald paunch, but the impression after such a small lie was instructed with some men she had nothing to talk about. Others, on the contrary, talked too much, mostly about herself, eternal dreamers and seekers of self, that is, chronic unemployed. She immediately from the metal. Molly herself worked a lot and did her work conscientiously. Therefore, she was incomprehensible to men who only talked and made plans without making any effort. And there were times when she liked a man, but he didn't like her. I'll call you. You've had candidates say goodbye to you like that, and not call. It was unpleasant, but not fatal. Molly did not try to make contact with the data. If a person wants to, he will call or write. Does not call, then he does not want to. His right. Molly allowed other people to feel negative about her, to have their own opinions different from hers. Everyone in their own head is the king of God, she believed. And you don't have to pick a person's brain to change their thoughts. One day, a stately, tall man with handsome but stern features came for a date. His name was George, and he worked for the Molly Investigative Committee. I liked him very much. He seemed a little too cold and aloof. The date went well. They agreed on a second meeting, and then a third meeting. Molly flew to George like on wings. She was sure that something interesting was about to begin, and she didn't expect to cut off the connection with her own hands. George, pardon the indiscretion. Have you ever been married? Do you have children? Molly asked shyly. It was a question she usually asked on a first date, but this time she liked the man so much that she was afraid to hear the truth. Yes, he was married. No kids, or rather, there are, but consider that no. George answered dryly. What do you mean? Yes, but don't have any. Molly was surprised. It's like this. My wife couldn't stand my schedule. I'm always at work. Attention to her young misunderstandings, and our relationship was a lot. In general, she left when she was still pregnant with the child. Does not let me near, said the man. What are you doing? So you cannot. Molly was indignant. It's her own child. But it was her choice, George shrugged. Molly was upset. She couldn't understand how she could live in peace. Go on a date, knowing that your own child was growing up somewhere without you, how it was being raised, what it was being fed. What were his first words? How could it be? And he's so cold about it. Boy, girl? Molly asked quietly. The boy is 2 years old. Smiled slightly at her vis-a-vis. You know, began Molly decisively, I don't understand you. It may be harsh, but I'm categorical in such matters. You have to do everything for your wife to allow you to see your son. Personally, I see the situation like this. Your wife won't let you have the kid, and you're not really interested in seeing him. You're not a father, you're just a donor. I won't apologize for my frankness and my own opinion, because it's the truth. And you know it. What do you know about me? George was indignant. An acquaintance without a year, a week about his wife. His ex-wife is not at all familiar with her. You don't know my situation, but you're already judging. I'm not gonna let anyone tell me what to do. So have a nice day. That was the end of it. It was a shame, of course. Molly liked the man, but she valued her own principles more, smearing stubborn tears on her cheeks. The girl went home, and there, under the influence of a momentary impulse, she deleted her account from the dating site, realizing that there was nothing to do at the boarding school. Time flew by, and now Molly is 38 years old and still single. Appearance is attractive. She herself is not stupid, well read. At work, she is appreciated, but in her personal life, a gap. By the way, Molly herself did not consider it a tragedy. Working in the hospital, she saw a lot of hard fates, compared to which the absence of a man in her life seemed a trifle. But still, when she met couples with children, her heart sank. She wanted to take care of someone, make dinner, braid hair. Molly liked me, and it was a daughter that the woman dreamed of. Of course, she would have liked a boy too. But still, in her ideal dreams, she drew exactly a little girl with thin and touching pigtails. She even dreamed sometimes that she had a favorite little girl, that Molly played with her, took her for walks, treated her with ice cream. But eventually something happens and the child disappears. And Molly then desperately searches for the little girl. That girl is kidnapped by a stranger. Then she falls into a pit, then lost in a huge shopping center. Usually after such dreams, Molly was haunted by an anxious state all day long. Loneliness was not too harrowing for Molly, perhaps because she was among people all the time. That was her job. At home, on the contrary, she wanted to be quiet, especially when it was a hard day like today. A woman was admitted to the intensive care unit by ambulance, the kind they called pilots. Threw herself from the 10th floor of her own apartment. Spring flare-up, sighs the surgeon. It's a wonder they made it. Resuscitation team did everything they could. Molly herself all sweaty and nervous. I don't know why. Over the years, the strain had played its part, and Molly tried not to blend in with the personal history of the patients. Otherwise, no amount of nerve would be enough. She was always sensitive to their complaints, but she did not take their pain upon herself, especially in a situation with people who didn't value their lives, taking time and energy away from the medics. But this time, she herself was shaking so much that she had to take a sedative. Stepping out into the corridor from the animation box, Molly immediately felt a firm grip on her elbow from behind. She turned around. It was a man about her age, all disheveled on his forehead. "Tell me, how is she? How's my wife? She's going to live." In a trembling voice he began. Molly realized who it was, the airwoman's husband. The nurse removed the mask from his face, and the man recoiled as if frightened. Tripped over something, probably his own foot. He landed awkwardly on the hospital bench and froze, looking Molly in the eye. "The doctor will come out now and tell you everything," Molly replied dryly. She did not like to inform her relatives that their loved one had passed away. Therefore, when she was bombarded with questions, she answered as emotionally as possible, although she scolded herself for it. But she could not help it. "What's your name?" the man shouted after her. It sounded so strange, but it was awkward to leave without answering a harmless question. Molly left the nurse and headed down the hall. And at 3:00 p.m., the strangest thing happened. Molly was approached by a nurse who had only recently joined the staff. She was very shy, hardly knew anyone. "Excuse me, Molly," smiling modestly, she addressed the nurse. "Yes," the latter replied affably. "Your husband is waiting for you at the morgue," the nurse said, confident that she had told the nurse the good news. But when she saw her bewildered face, she realized that something was wrong. "Are you confused? I've never been married." "You obviously have the wrong person," Molly replied. "Oh, I'm sorry. I'll find another nurse, Molly. I thought you were the only one with that name." "I'm upset." "Nurse. I am." "Oh, I see." Molly was happy with her guess. It must have been a prank. "We got some funny guys who like to play pranks." "Thank you." Chuckles. "Let me see who the joker is." Molly was sure those marriage-related jokes were a thing of the past. But it turns out they're not. There are still those who are single. Molly does not give rest. They've set up a meeting too. Where? At the morgue. All right, I'll give it to them, Molly thought. What was her amazement when at the appointed place she saw none of her colleagues, not some stupid surprise or something like that. Waiting for her outside the morgue was the husband of today's pilot. You couldn't believe your eyes, Molly. "I'm sorry, Molly, I'm sorry to interrupt you." The man apologized confusedly. "You're not distracting me." The nurse was confused. "It's just weird. I was told my husband was expecting me." "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I didn't think." "I can explain, Molly. Don't be frightened. I'm a perfectly sane man of sound mind and good memory. Of course, what happened today has knocked me off my game. It's a great deal of grief, but I'm adequate." Molly adequate. Nervously cooked by a man. a nurse. It became uncomfortable. She really hoped that now at least one of the staff would come out of the morgue, and it would be possible to sneak away from this unstable man under the guise of urgent matters. But no one came out, so there was no one to ask for protection. I had to do it on my own. So calm. How did she start you? Thomas answered, man. Thomas, I sympathize with your grief, but I have patients waiting. I need to put IVs by the hour, sorry, she said firmly and was about to turn 180 degrees. But Thomas grabbed her arm again. Like this morning in the hallway. Molly, I'm not borrowing. You have plenty of time. My wife, Maria. She died. There was an awkward pause. Molly lowered her eyes, not knowing what to say. I'm sorry for your loss. Hang in there. She said the catchphrase. Yeah, I'll be fine. But here's our daughter, you see. She's only 5 years old. I'm sorry, the nurse sighed. As she is now, she knows. The worst part is, yes, she does. Maria went out the window right in front of her. Poor child. She won't be able to survive, lamented the man. What a horror. I'm really madly sorry. Molly shook her head. I don't even know how I could help you. First of all, I apologize for calling you my wife. It's just that I'm still in shock about what happened. But when I explain it to you, you'll understand. I'm sorry, but you look exactly like Maria. Like twin sisters. Molly recoiled. She felt uncomfortable. No, I'm sorry. She's blonde. I'm dark. We don't look anything like her. Molly waved her hands. The conversation was going in the wrong direction. The nurse got a bad feeling and took a few steps back. Wait. Thomas got nervous. Maria has resorted to the services of a hairdresser in this matter. Their artificial blonde hair. She's actually smart too. When she came to you, her face was smashed up, so you might not have noticed. But I'll show you a picture. The man reached into his pocket for his phone, but Molly stopped him. Look, I don't like what's happening right now. I'm very sorry for your loss. You're a nervous wreck. Come with me, and I'll give you a shot of sedative. Otherwise, you're acting like a nervous wreck. You don't understand. You really are a copy. The widower wouldn't give up. Good concession, Molly. Let's say we look alike. What difference does it make? I don't know how to say this. I have a proposal to you, or rather, a request, or rather I beg you, replace my wife for a while. What? Molly, with indignation. Are you out of your mind? Wait, Molly, wait. Thomas begged. It's not for me, it's for the daughter. Imagine her mother going out the window in front of her. And she's such a fragile little girl. She's got a very fragile psyche. She can't be stressed, you know. I did everything I could to protect my daughter from any kind of trouble. But that's the way it is. I've been called here to do the paperwork. Then the body will be sent to the forensic morgue. You don't do that kind of forensics. They need to check if Maria really killed herself or if someone helped her, but who? The apartment was locked from the inside. I was at work at the time. There are witnesses. Alas, knowing Maria, she was capable of it. Let the investigators deal with it, Molly said tiredly. She wanted to finish the conversation and get rid of this madman. Sorry, I got distracted. So our girl Anna, she won't survive the loss of her mother. She's in such shock right now. Who is she with? Molly asked for some reason, hoping it would get her out of the conversation. She's with my mother. She, too, thinks Anna shouldn't tell the truth. Go to a child psychologist. He will advise you what to do. I can't help you. Molly shook her head and was about to leave, but Thomas grabbed her arm desperately. It hurt so badly that the nurse poked her. Please, look at her. Look at Anna. You won't let her suffer, will you? Begged Thomas, shoving the phone screen right in Molly's face. She had to pull away. The gadget was too close to her eyes. The picture floated, but when Molly looked at the picture, she froze like a stiff. In the picture was her and a little girl. And this little girl had pigtails just like the ones in her dreams where she'd drawn her daughter. Molly forcefully and squeezed her eyes shut, then reopened her eyes and stared at the photo again. Yes, she hadn't imagined it. That's her in the photo, and next to her is a little girl, just like from her dreams. Molly slowly shifted her gaze from the screen to Thomas. He nodded understandingly. Yes, I was dumbfounded too, when you took off the mask and I saw your face. You look very much like her. But how perplexed Molly was. She understood that there were similar people in the world, but not to such an extent. I don't know. You didn't have a twin sister. Thomas assumed, but we're not in Santa Barbara. Molly muttered, stuck to the photo again. Excuse me, how old are you? Thomas inquired. 38, thoughtfully replied to. I see. Well, Maria was younger. But if you're cleaned up, you could pass for her. Besides, Anna wouldn't notice wrinkles where there weren't any. I'm sorry, I'm not making any sense. But what wrinkles do you have? You're probably just tired from your shift. The mention of wrinkles sobered the nurse. She suddenly remembered that she was on planet Earth, and right now she was once again reminded of the detrimental effects of gravity on the skin, and at the same time of her age. You know what? She said sternly to Thomas. I'm not going to participate in any of your performances. Do you want a child to be traumatized for life? No, don't even think about it. And pretending to be someone's mom. It's unthinkable. She made another attempt to leave. And again Thomas grabbed her arm, painfully and in addition. He knelt down in front of her. Maria, oh, I'm sorry, Molly, I'm begging you. Please help me just say goodbye to Anna for a couple days. And then you'll be gone. Just understand, the girl saw her mom go out the window. I told her it wasn't true, that her mom would come back, that she was just dreaming. I'm begging you, just talk to her. And then, what are you gonna do about it? Then Molly softened. She realized that this man was truly on the verge of despair. I do not know. I did not think of it. While I will say that my mother is gone, I will write letters on her behalf. But right now, it's very important to let her know that Mom is alive. Molly, it's not free. I'll pay for it. Although Molly was not self-serving, but named Thomas, the amount of the fee interested her. The fact was that the girl had taken out a loan a couple of years ago. The amount was not large, but in the end it doubled and was already equal to Molly's monthly salary. Molly berated herself for the loan because she was a pragmatic person. She didn't understand how she had gotten into this bondage. She tried to pay off the debt, but then she did laundry, broke down, or had a friend's birthday. In general, all these little things didn't allow her to get out of it. The very fact that she had a debt was weighing on Molly. And the one, realizing that she could make easy money, she thought about it. All the more, perhaps, she could really help the child not to fall into depression. At the same time, Molly, it was scary because playing with children's psyche is dangerous and cruel. We have to think it through. Leave your phone number. I'll call you, Molly said. No, not at all. There's no time to wait. I have to give you an answer. Thomas is begging now. We need you to go now. There's no time to lose. Anna won't care that Mom is brown, grinned Molly. We'll say Mom dyed her hair. Or better yet, we'll go to a salon. Let them color your hair. Molly didn't have time to answer. Thomas's cell phone rang. Cell phone rings. Hello? Yeah, Mom. How is she? Yeah, I got it. She's been crying all day about not eating anything. She's calling for her mom. Tell her Mommy's coming over tonight. No, don't ask her anything. Trust me, everything will be fine. Absurd, Molly thought. But something in her head switched. It's a little girl who cries and can't eat anything out of grief. Molly's heart squeezed. She had already agreed. She was going to help without money. Okay, fine, she said. When Thomas finished talking to her mom, I'll turn in my shift, and let's go. In Thomas's eyes read surprise and sincere gratitude. Thank you, Molly, thank you. You have no idea, he mumbled confusedly. I guess I really have no idea what I'm in for, the nurse muttered as she turned in her shift. Molly walked out to the hospital gate to where the cars were parked. Thomas walked her to his car and opened the door, inviting her to sit in the front seat. Into the parlor first, Thomas informed her. Why? Molly wondered. Well, as a monkey, to color you. You can't show up. That's how she won't recognize you. Kids have special perceptions. You know, she's gonna notice the hair. Molly swallowed how unceremoniously Thomas had taken to using the first name. But she couldn't stomach the monkey. Don't call me by your wife's name, she asked. I'm sorry. And let's be on a first-name basis. Otherwise, we'll be acting unnatural. So Molly, I'll call you Molly. Of course, I cannot observe. There will be questions in front of the baby. Molly rolled her eyes. What had she gotten herself into? It wasn't immediately possible to find a salon where Molly was accepted for makeup without an appointment. It's a long procedure. With the master must be agreed in advance. What are you? A man. We can't take on your wife. It would take 6 hours to make her blonde. And we have clients. But finally, Thomas found a salon and a master who was willing to provide such services. Yes, agreed the energetic hairdresser. I just had a client who was booked for a super. So sit down. We'll do everything. Just as long as the hair is not burned. Sighing, thought Molly, and obediently sat down in the chair. In her 38 years, she still did not dye her hair. Or rather, there had been a couple of experiments when she was 17 to 20 years old, but they were colors close to her natural one. A radical change of image. Molly was frightened. Of course, on the top of the head. Hair, the first gray hair, which did not forget to remind caring friends, but it hadn't bothered Molly herself yet. When Molly's head was covered with tinfoil and like a chicken before the bunting, Thomas pulled out his cell phone and said, "Now I'm going to call Anna. Don't say anything, just wave. But send her an air kiss too." That's what they did with Maria when they were video chatting. Thomas stared at the screen, where the older woman's face appeared first. "Mom, try to hold back. This is what I told you about. You got me." I got it, nodded the elderly, slightly worried, but well-groomed woman. And then on the screen appeared a girl with a dark mustache, pigtails. Fika on the eyes of the tumor was visible that she had recently cried. The child was holding some stupid acid pink toy. Molly's heart sank at the sight of the girl. The baby was a replica of the girl in her dreams. "Anna, sunshine," Thomas began cheerfully. "Here's your mommy. You see, she's making herself pretty. You see, she's at the salon dyeing her hair to be the most beautiful. Mommy." Anna exclaimed with joy. Molly was confused at first, but quickly pulled herself together and waved to the child, smiling. "You see, my girl is gentle. Thomas, it's okay. Mommy's just busy all day. I told you you were dreaming." When Molly saw how happy the girl was, she realized that she hadn't agreed to this adventure for nothing. The child in front of her eyes, whose mother went out the window, was insanely pitiful. But all know, let's not distract Mommy. Today at Grandma's featherbed. And tomorrow I'll pick you up. Okay, but I want to go to Mommy. Girl Katinka. Mommy, it's too late to be free. You'll already be with a heel. And tomorrow morning I'll pick you up. It's a deal. It was obvious that Anna did not like this option, but she did not become capricious. What a good, obedient girl, Molly thought. She's not naughty. Another girl would have thrown a tantrum by now. Molly did not notice how Anna disappeared from the screen, and instead of the baby's face appeared the round face of Thomas's mom. "You're making a mistake," she said bitterly. "Don't," Mom said firmly to Thomas. "I've made up my mind. It's better this way. Believe me." The conversation was over. Molly felt uneasy, but Thomas was clearly determined. It was obvious that he would go to great lengths for his daughter. While Molly sat in the foil, he showed her videos of his wife, how she talked, how she moved. Fortunately, Maria and Molly even had similar facial expressions. Tonight, I was ordered around by Thomas, and Molly noted how quickly his tone had transformed from begging to lordly. But she didn't bother with his intonation. It was very noticeable that the man was nervous. He wiped his fingers off his temples, and then he clutched his stomach, Writhing painfully said, "I have not eaten anything today after breakfast, and I have an ulcer. I'll say something not harmful." He also injected, and some "I'm tired," thought Molly. 40 minutes later, Thomas returned, holding a croissant and a large paper cup with a lid. The man looked fresher. Apparently, hunger really wasn't doing him any good. "And this is for you." Smiling slightly, he held out the croissant to Molly. "It's vegetarian. You don't eat meat." "What? I don't eat meat." Molly was outraged. "Yes, dear, you don't," Thomas informed her, watching the master's reaction as she rummaged through Molly's hair, checking to see how well the compound had worked. Maria frowned. She didn't share the idea of vegetarianism, although she did think it was unhealthy to overuse meat. "So what am I eating?" Molly asked ironically. "But you eat everything except meat, fish, cheese, yogurt, kefir, everything dairy. You don't eat honey." "What am I eating?" Molly exclaimed indignantly. The hairdresser nonchalantly continued, rummaging through her hair, as if she hears such conversations every day. "That was yours, like liking coconut, butter, oatmeal, and milk. Shopping do vegan in stores. This croissant is also vegan, but sourdough," Thomas explained. "That's why I'm so slim," sighed Molly. "That's exactly why," Thomas confirmed. "Yes, he's lucky I'm naturally thin, and I can pass as a vegetarian," Molly thought. "But what's that?" she asked, pointing at the paper cup. "It's your favorite." "It's also a veteran's," her newfound husband informed her. Molly was pleased that the man showed concern, brought her a skewering. Despite her condition, she could see how nervous he was, just trying to keep his cool. Maria's nutrition, of course, was so-so, but nothing, a couple days, could be tolerated at all. Hardly in such a situation a piece of food in the throat. "Well, and the girl Anna at least fed meat?" she asked. "There's a whole story here," Thomas mused. "You see, Maria, or rather you, get hysterical at the sight of meat, and the child is absolutely forbidden to eat meat. I even had to go to a private daycare center where each child has a different diet. But the grandmother feeds Anna, because under the influence of her mother, Anna doesn't want to look at meat. Come on, a child should eat meat." It was the hairdresser who first reacted to their conversation. "I have a friend who's also a progressive. Not enough blood in the end." "I'm sorry to interrupt." "You should be," Molly said. She was against a vegetarian diet for children, too. "You eat meat, too?" She turned to Thomas. "Sure, secretly," he replied. "I don't want to make my wife nervous." Molly sighed. The beer's making her retarded. Macho. Okay. Molly grimaced. Yeah, she thought. If Maria drank that kind of beer and ate grass, no wonder her life had become a mess in the end. Immediately, Molly felt ashamed in front of herself for such black humor, although she knew that it was a way to relax. After all, she was very nervous about the adventure in which she had become entangled. Finally, the hours-long excruciation was over. Molly also got a haircut to make her hair look like Maria's. Wow, Thomas exhaled, seeing the nurse's one-to-one transformation. And Molly herself was speechless. She had never seen herself so bright and would never have thought that she could be made blonde. Modern products can't do that, smiled the hairdresser, happy that her labors were appreciated. Thomas paid. They left the salon together and went to the car. Molly felt a kind of stiffness in her body. It was unfamiliar to her. Strangely, it was as if she had become a different person. Maria. What have I done? She thought, catching her condition. Thomas took her hand gently, not like this afternoon, and quietly promised Molly, "It's only for a couple of days. I'll take it from here." Molly did not immediately react to her name in the short time she had been confused. Who was she, Maria or Molly? It felt like her personality was splitting. Felt like she was in a movie and didn't know if she was the main character and everything was going to be okay, or she's a minor character that the viewer doesn't feel sorry for. And for a plot twist, they can do anything they want to him. Now we're going home. You've gotten the hang of it overnight. I'll show you where everything is. So you won't behave in front of Anna. It's strange. She's a sensitive girl. If Mommy doesn't behave as usual, she'll get worried. Molly sighed, but didn't argue. Of course, she'd rather spend the night at home. Calm down. Get her thoughts in order. It's just so surreal. But if you're going to do what you want, you're going to have to do what you want. And I've got this envelope in my hand. Extra motivation. While she was coloring her hair, Thomas withdrew some bills from the ATM, bought a gift envelope and stuffed the advance inside. When they got into the car, he handed the envelope to Molly so she wouldn't change her mind. But if a few hours ago money had been the decisive motivator in this story, Molly saw Anna's tearful eyes and had no doubt that she was doing it for the sake of a poor child. And earning that kind of bonus wouldn't be unreasonable in her situation, would it? They came to a modern bedroom community. Housing is not elite, but quite decent, climbed up to the 10th floor. Now Molly will enter the apartment where everything happened. The thought made her uncomfortable. Something terrible happened in that apartment this morning. Terrible. Molly had seen a lot of things in her job, but it all stayed there in the hospital. And now this creepy story is part of her life. And Molly let it happen. The police were here today to check out the scene, Thomas said. When they entered the apartment, Molly was so excited that she was completely oblivious to the surroundings. But I have to go back to the police tomorrow to testify. Why it happened, if there was any pushing, etc. They wouldn't just let it go. Molly sighed. She didn't know what to say. What if the woman had really been thrown out of a window or driven? Or maybe it was just a spring flare-up. Why do you think it happened? She asked Thomas a question. I'll be honest, it's been a long time coming. And she'd already tried. The first time, she didn't register. I made a deal. But the second time, alas, it was already fixed, Thomas said, pouring himself a glass of water in the kitchen. The wife had problems, Molly guessed. Unfortunately, she was even treated in a clinic. I paid for the best one for her, spared nothing. I loved her very much. After the clinic, she changed a lot. I didn't recognize her. After discharge, she was monitored by a psychiatrist, also a great specialist, and she seemed to stabilize. But in the end, here she is. What about Anna? How did you leave her with her? Molly wondered. She was at tennis and acting perfectly normal. She worshipped the child. That's why they have such a strong bond. If it were up to her, she wouldn't have even sent her to kindergarten. But Anna's psychologist recommended no contact. They're 24/7, Thomas replied. Why not? Molly wondered. The thing is that sometimes Maria scared Anna. For example, once she made her drink a lot of water and made her vomit. They pumped her stomach. It didn't seem like a big deal, but Maria couldn't explain why she was doing it. Or in the middle of the night, she grabbed Anna, wrapped her in a blanket, and ran away. Good thing I caught up with her in time. I could barely catch up. Molly shook her head. Yes, unfortunately. But she was pretty sane on the pills. How are you? Like I was shopping at the salons. Just an ordinary woman. Sad story, sighed Molly. Well, who are you? What do you do for a living? It's not important. I'm the head of a department in a firm. Not rich, but not poor. I could let my wife not work. I mean, you know, we really wanted to. We couldn't have a baby, so we did. And during pregnancy, I noticed something strange in her behavior. She blamed it on the quirks of pregnancy. And after the birth, I blamed it on postpartum depression. But it was much worse than that. Usually these things manifest themselves in adolescence. But Maria was different. Okay, I don't want you to worry about this. Let me show you around. The baby's coming tomorrow. I need you to be in the know and get something from Maria's closet for the day. The apartment turned out to be large, spacious in modern style 3-rooms kitchen, combined with the living room, a huge bathroom, with expensive dark tiles. Very cozy, child. It was clearly furnished with love. A cute crib, like a princess. a baby table with scattered markers, and a piece of paper with an unfinished drawing. Light construction curtains on the windows, pictures from Disney cartoons on the wall's low rack with toys. In the corner, a stylish wicker basket in white, also obviously with toys. But most of all, Molly conquered the bedroom. A huge bed, soft lighting, fluffy carpet. "It's so nice in here. You can make beds. Sleep here," said Thomas. "And I'll sleep on the couch." Molly was rejoiced. But the wind, which won on the right and bored the light curtain, quickly sobered her up with a blast from the balcony. "This is where it happened?" she asked. Thomas nodded. "I'd rather be on the couch then. I didn't feel well, Molly. Sleep certainly wasn't coming." Molly gave a long expression, then got up, turned on the light, and headed for the kitchen area. Just then, she heard a ball of cloth, a slipper. It was Thomas smacking into the kitchen, not sleeping either. "Sympathetic?" he inquired. "No," Molly sighed. "We'll have to sleep together tomorrow," he informed her. "What do you mean?" The guest was surprised. "Like this. Anna sometimes has nightmares, and she comes to our room, lies down between us, and falls asleep peacefully." "What am I driving at?" Molly clutched her head. She never thought it would go this far. Might as well give up before it was too late. Molly lost her wrists and grimaced, then turned down the sleeve of her blouse. She couldn't sleep in the Maria pajamas Thomas had offered her, so she laid down on the couch. What was she wearing? There was a huge bruise on her wrist. There seemed to be bruises on her forearm and shoulder too. But to see them, she'd have to take her top off, and Molly didn't want to do that. "Thomas." "Wow." The man stretched out in embarrassment. "Was it really me?" "Well, who grabbed my hand?" Molly grumbled today. "I'm sorry." It was obvious that he was ashamed of himself for showing excessive force. "You were under stress, so I forgive you. But please don't touch me again," Molly demanded firmly. "That's it. No more," Thomas promised. The two of them cooked up a light skewering of the quickie. They sat in the kitchen and had a heavy conversation about Maria's hospital, about life in general. Thomas even gave himself a little slack and burst into tears. "How could I be without her now? I loved her. I loved her." It was obvious that he was embarrassed by his weakness. Molly felt sorry for him. If in the morning he seemed to her a shot and unsexy shirt, but now she saw in him a loving husband and father who was ready for everything for the sake of the family. Sitting behind the bar, lit up in soft yellow light, in those silly Mickey Mouse pajamas and perpetually falling slippers, he was so sweet, homely. Who would have thought that just this morning he had had such grief, and tomorrow would be the continuation of this nightmare? And to survive the funeral and organize everything in secret from his daughter. "You just don't let the neighbors see you. Everyone knows what happened here. If anyone sees Maria alive, they'll have a heart attack." Although, on the other hand, in this house everyone is busy with themselves and do not remember what my Maria looked like and in what apartment lived. Besides, the tenants change frequently. And the playground. If Anna goes out and someone tells her something, was Molly worried? I doubt it. Kids don't walk these days. Almost everyone's on gadgets. Besides, our walks are mostly in the garden. And you can go to another playground. You don't have to hang out here. "Suit yourself," Molly sighed. "But it's not a good idea." "Did you see what was going on with Anna today?" Suddenly, aggressively asked Thomas. "You're backing down. What are you scared of?" "Molly, I'm just..." "All right. Forget it." "That's good, Widowmaker. All right, let's go to bed. Tomorrow's a big day for you and me." Molly went back to her couch anxiously, thinking about what awaited her tomorrow. She managed to get a couple hours of sleep, and Thomas, judging by his appearance, didn't sleep at all. Dryly, they greeted each other. They started their morning coffee. "Look, Maureen, you're having breakfast. Oatmeal. Man. You. Or rattled with beer kefir," Thomas warned. Molly no longer reacted to being addressed by someone else's name, but she managed to cope from the listed foodstuffs. Oatmeal, my ass. The name alone sounded like a judgment. And what to cook? She inquired. Anna doesn't like vegetables. We usually give her oatmeal with fruit, Thomas informed her. It is clear that this is not a bad food, but for a change, the child can give cheesecakes and pancakes. She's growing up. Thomas shrugged at the laughs. She's fine. Everything's fine. But you're right. Nutrition wasn't to my liking either, but I didn't want to argue with Maria. I see Anna is quite active, like all children. And my daughter and I had much more global problems with nutrition on this Berkeley background. What was in Molly's eyebrows? I'm in a hurry. You have a lot to do today while you get settled into the apartment, so I'll bring Anna over. I'll have to feed her lunch. There's nothing in the fridge. So here's some money for you to go buy something. Just try to take the elevator from the floor below or the floor above. And don't let anyone see you leave this apartment, Thomas said. Listen, aren't you afraid to leave me like this? A stranger in the house. What if I steal something? Molly asked. Take whatever you want. It's no big deal. If the fee I offered you isn't enough, I'll add to it. No. It's all right. Molly shook her head and mentally reproached herself for stupidity. But it's bad enough for a person. She's also teasing Thomas left, and Molly was very glad of that. She wanted to be alone for a while, to take a shower and brush her teeth, and then she remembered that she hadn't brought any clothes for the shoot, not even underwear. And if she can take some clothes from Maria, she will not touch her underwear. She didn't have a toothbrush either, but that's no problem. You can brush your teeth with your finger. She didn't figure out how to turn on the tricked-out shower right away. A tropical downpour poured down on her head. Molly didn't want that. Her style was still holding up after the salon, so she hurriedly searched for the right lever. The tropical rain dried up, and instead Molly was attacked on all sides by prickly lines of cold water. From the surprise, Molly panicked, started thrashing around the cabin. What a wild one. I scolded myself. The nurse is so far removed from technology. Finally, she managed to tame the malicious lines and set the shower properly. And I didn't use it. It's not hygienic. But the fragrant gel with Vanya Liu decided to try it. It smelled good. Clearly expensive perfume. This gel. After cleaning herself up, Molly stepped out of the shower. She hadn't realized to prepare towels beforehand, so now she was shivering wetly. Searching in the closet, in the bathroom, and picking out a clean, bigger towel. Finally, she found a pink, fluffy towel, got back into it, and walked out to the large mirror where she could reflect herself in full size. When she saw herself, Molly felt a little dizzy. When you look at yourself in someone else's mirror, you're always a little different in unfamiliar surroundings. But Molly was additionally confused by that blonde hair. The color. Shaw to her. She looked younger, fresher, but it wasn't her. Maria whispered to Molly, and prickly goosebumps ran down her back. She felt like running away. What was she doing here? Leaving the envelope with the money on the nightstand in the hallway and leaving. But it didn't work out. It happens. She thought she could, but suddenly she panicked. And then thoughts of the girl came to her mind. Poor Anna. She'll go crazy. No, we have to play the part. Thomas promised it would only be for a couple of days. We can be patient. After that, he can do what he wants. Molly went into Anna's room and looked around again in the daylight, dust flying. We should clean this place up, she thought. Apparently, Maria didn't care too much about cleaning because there was a heavy layer of dust on the shelving units, and this in the children's room. Finding a stack of different robes in the same bathroom, Molly chose one of the silk jersey. It was too short, but it wouldn't get in the way while she was cleaning. Molly set to work. She found rags in the apartment and vacuum cleaned. On the windowsill were also dirty. Washed them when she was scrubbing the floors, not really caring about the use in which she is, suddenly heard behind her back delicate while pouring. From surprise, Molly jumped. Turning around sharply, she saw Thomas on his face, playing, barely restraining her smile. Me. I thought you weren't due for lunch. I flipped through Molly. Had to pick something up. Had to come back, Thomas explained. Of course you did, Molly thought more. Probably checking to see if I'm here or if I've run away already and you're cleaning up. It's not worth the hassle, Thomas said. But I can't keep the baby in a dirty room, the girl replied. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go, Thomas said. And he looked at Molly one more time to say goodbye. What a bastard, she thought. She hadn't even had time to bury her wife yet, and already he was looking at other women. But it's her own fault. I'm standing here in Maria's robe and no underwear. I can imagine how he feels. After Molly finished cleaning up, she decided to look in the fridge. Anna was supposed to arrive at lunchtime. We have to feed her something. A healthy vegetarian breakfast. The girl had luckily skipped it. Her grandmother had to feed her a nice hearty meal, so one could take it easy when she opened the refrigerator. Molly discovered that there was a mouse hanging there. We have to go to the store. She got ready. She put on her jeans, but her sweater was not fresh because she had to sleep in it at night. I had to look for a replacement in Maria's closet, and when I found a suitable option, I put it on. Yes, Maria's taste was not bad thing excellent, not cheap, threw his cape on top. Molly went to the store. She didn't call the elevator. From the 10th floor, it's not a problem to walk down, but the likelihood of running into neighbors is minimized. There was a hypermarket not far from Thomas' house. That's great. You can buy toothbrushes, urine, underwear. Of course, we could go home and get the things we need, but then Molly wouldn't be home in time for lunch, and there's still some cooking to be done when she gets to the store. Molly didn't think to follow Thomas's instructions about a vegetarian diet. You can do what you want, but the child must eat a full meal, Molly said to herself, and picked up a tray of turkey stuffing. She also put eggs, cottage cheese, yogurt, and kefir in the cart. She took vegetables, flour, and quality pasta. Back at home, she began the wizardry of cooking dinner. The stove turned out to be tricky too. At first, Molly did not understand how to turn it on, but here it is the same button applied. The finger does not turn on. After a few tries, it turned out that you had to hold your finger on the switch for a few seconds. Then it seemed to her that the stove did not heat. But soon she remembered that, yes, there are stoves that start to heat up only when you put a pot of special metal on them. Like an old granny, grumbled Molly to herself. Having mastered the household appliances, Molly cooked soup for the child, turkey vermicelli, stewed vegetables, and for dessert she made cottage cheese. Only she finished as the front door slammed. Maria, Sonny, we are home, expressively shouted Thomas from the hallway. Molly shuddered. It seemed to begin a play in which she was the main character. Scary, very scary. But there's no escape. We have to put on the mask and go on stage. Anna, kitten. Mommy, I missed you so much. Molly came gently out of the kitchen. When she saw Thomas' face contorted, she realized she'd said the wrong thing at the start. Mommy. Anna screamed with joy, threw herself on Molly's neck, hugged her tightly, and immediately recoiled. Then suspiciously asked Mommy, "You don't like kittens? They are contagious and kill birds." I didn't know what to say to Molly, but in the end I pulled myself together and confidently replied, "What are you saying, my daughter? Cats are lazy now. All eat dry food and sleep all day to them on birds. Lazy to hunt, but they are tender and fluffy." "As you are my sweet evil," said Anna sternly. "Of course," angrily agreed Molly. "But there are healthy sweets. Let's split up, and I'll feed you lunch and give you some goodies for dessert," helping Anna to take off her light jacket. Molly looked into Thomas's face. He was clearly annoyed because he had not prepared his new mom well. Anna had figured out it was an imposter, but the girl's eyes shone with happiness. Surprisingly, she believed it was her own mom. "Come wash your hands, let's have lunch," Molly suggested. "Smells good," praised Thomas. They sat down at the round table that served as a divide, shared between the kitchen and the living room. Molly took the Colonel's plate. "Soup, pour." Into the bowl with Bear, whispered Thomas. Fulfilling his request, Molly placed the plate in front of the girl. Here, enjoy your meal, she said. The girl looked at the meatballs incredulously. What are these? She asked. In the Delta, answered Molly in a simple manner. And what are they made of? Rounding her eyes, Anna continued to inquire. Thomas made an angry face. He'd warned that Maria didn't recognize meat and absolutely forbade feeding it to the baby. But Molly didn't bat an eye. It's turkey. You know that bird. Molly smiled. You. Anna stepped away from the plate. Mommy, we don't eat meat from slaughtered animals. And this isn't real meat. It's lab-grown. No animals were harmed. So eat up. Anna carefully scooped the soup with a spoon and incredulously tasted it. Delicious, smiled. It tasted like her grandmother's cooking. She demanded the promised dessert. What a clever girl you are, Molly praised. Usually babies don't eat soup well, but you did it in no time. Let's eat the vegetables first. Thomas was right. She didn't like vegetables in any form. It was obvious she was suffering over her plate, and the named mother herself decided not to torture the child. She took the ruddy, flavorful ones out of the jar and put them on the dishes from one kind of dessert. Both Anya and Thomas were drooling. Mommy, you have never cooked so delicious, delightedly reported the girl. Now you will always be delicious to eat, smiled back Molly, and immediately faltered. But what right does she have to make such promises to the girl? She knows this child only half an hour and communicates as if it were her own daughter. Why does she have such feelings for the girl? Mystery. Molly noticed that the girl, even during lunch, does not let go of her hands a strange acid-colored toy. The monster was clearly in the way, and the girl shifted it from one hand to the other nestled in her lap. Let's put it away for now, Molly suggested. Have you forgotten? Surprised girl. No, I haven't forgotten. Tried to correct the situation, false mother. You told me to always be with me or else there will be trouble. I did say that. Molly was surprised. Oh, okay. Yes, there was something strange going on in this family. She realized from the look in Thomas's eyes that there was some family custom involved that she would be told about later, so she decided not to say anything. Lunch went well. Thomas instructed him to watch cartoons, and he went to run some errands. He spent almost the whole day at the police station, giving a statement. The cops seized the gadgets, went through the contents, interviewed neighbors, but they couldn't find any clues that might have made Thomas suspicious. In addition, the file recorded Maria's previous attempts to kill himself. It was therefore decided to leave Thomas alone. In the evening, he came home exhausted. Molly didn't bathe the girl. She only made her wash her face and brush her teeth. Bathing a child is a process full of rituals, and an imposter can unknowingly give herself away. The girl will realize that she is not her mother, will panic. You can just put yourself in her place. Remember how she was a child, and imagine the feelings that would experience suddenly realizing that the mother was replaced. So after watching the cartoons that Thomas recommended, they had a delicious dinner, and Molly put the girl to bed. Mom, can't you leave the blanket like that? You have to shove it under me. Frightenedly muttered the little girl. When was Molly going to leave her room? I forgot. Molly came to her senses. Remind me, please, why not? Because there are monsters under the bed. They will grab the blanket and drag me away with it, explained the girl. Come on, baby. Monsters don't exist. Molly smiled, but poked the blanket nonetheless. Leaving the room, she quietly closed the door, but immediately heard Anna's voice. No, Mommy, don't close it. Okay, I'll leave it open, Molly agreed. And they have to flick the switch 3 times. They're afraid of that, the girl said. Okay, nodded her head Molly. And the switch clicked 3 times. And in one of those flicks, when the light came on, Molly saw the girl pulling a pen out from under the blanket and twisting the figure. What on earth are you doing? Molly was indignant. What's the henna? To chase them away. What them? The woman didn't understand. You know, they're evil monsters, so no one will hurt you. Molly promised. Go back to sleep. Turn off the light. Molly found that the nursery was not in darkness. There was an earphone on the table and a starry sky on the ceiling. Special stickers, apparently. Walking into the kitchen, Maria met her liege. It was obvious that he had had a hard day, and now he was trying to relax with a glass of something strong. You know, when I saw you from behind in that robe today, for a moment I thought Maria was alive. What the hell am I doing, you idiot? Only 24 hours of theater. And I'm already going crazy, and you look crazy too. And Anna so calmly, resolutely said, Molly, since we've started, let's finish it. Better tell me, what is this toy? It's a strange one, Anna. I didn't play with it when I was a kid. Yeah, it's a monster. It was custom made for a wounded girl. Maria ordered it from a child psychologist, recommended it, like it's a way for a kid to deal with his fears. Well, you know, if you make friends with your demons, then they won't touch you. The strange psychologist stretched Molly in response. Well, how about turning the lights off 3 times to pierce the blanket? Oh, those figs. Oh, that's right. Anna's got a lot of issues. But you know, Maria was a complicated person, and she saw a lot of things, so she passed them on to her daughter. How did you deal with such a weird mom? I'm sorry I left the child. Molly wondered. Maria was a very caring mother. The child was always safe with her, but without Anna she was depressed as hell and couldn't wait for her. Nervous, so she didn't take her there every day. Thank goodness the garden is private. No one condemns free attendance. Okay, I'm gonna go to bed, said Molly. I'm going to bed, said Molly. Wait. Thomas called out to her. Where are you going? What's that? The couch. You forgot. We have to sleep together in our own bed. Otherwise, Anna will think we've had a fight, Thomas reminded her. That's right, Molly. Look, is there any way to avoid this? I'm embarrassed. Don't worry, I won't pester you, Thomas promised with a bitter grin. You're my type, but believe me, I'm not in the mood for fun right now. Life has gone to hell in a flash. So there's nothing to do. I'd have to submit. But Molly found a way out. She dug out a rhinestone velveteen tracksuit from Maria's closet and put it on and went to bed. That way she felt protected. The blankets, fortunately, were also separate, not one for two. Thanks to this, it was possible to go back like a cocoon and not feel that there was a man lying next to you. In general, Molly didn't sleep in the same bed with a man very often. Usually she came to visit and did not stay overnight, and she didn't even like to let a man in her room. Now she had to share a bed with a man she didn't even know until yesterday. Molly got back into the blanket and stared out at the balcony, where it was blowing. It was cold in the bedroom. So Molly didn't take off her socks. It's cold in here. Why don't you close the balcony? Asked Thomas, who entered the bedroom. He was wearing dark pajamas. His hair was wet. He smelled of helium or something perfumed after a shower. I don't want to go near your balcony at all, Molly said. I see. I'll close it myself, Thomas said, and went to the loggia to lock the sashes, but then came back and closed the balcony and the door. All this time, Molly could look at her new husband in his pajamas with impunity. He's good, she thought, and was suddenly ashamed of her thoughts. She even blushed and her heart thumped loudly. That's it, said Thomas, closing the door. Maria liked to sleep in the cold, so she always ventilated the room. So she turned into the North Pole in the summer was still okay. But in the winter and fall, brr, at least I'll sleep in the warmth. Thomas, why didn't you tell her you were uncomfortable? Molly wondered. I did. But the thing is that lately it was impossible to argue with Maria. Of course, in more serious matters I was persistent, but in such small things it was easier to give in. With these words, Thomas snuggled into bed next to Molly, covered with a blanket. He turned his back to her and immediately fell asleep with a measured sniffle. Molly thought with relief, but sleep did not come to her. Molly froze in her cocoon of blanket and was afraid to move. She turned over only when she lay on her back sideways. It felt better. Yesterday was exhausting. She didn't sleep much, so eventually sleep overcame her. In the morning, when Molly woke up, she found that during the night she had rolled over to face Thomas, and he was also facing her. But the worst part was that his eyes were open, and he was looking at her with a strange, frightening look. Molly recoiled. "Good morning," said Thomas quietly. "Good," replied Molly hoarsely, embarrassed. She felt embarrassed and hurried out of the bed. "I'll go and make breakfast," she announced and ran off to the bathroom. Molly was nervous. Her heart was pounding frantically. She washed her face, brushed her teeth with the toothbrush she bought yesterday. A shower could be taken later. Heading to the kitchen, Molly started making cheesecakes for breakfast. Soon Thomas appeared in the kitchen. "Did you sleep well?" he asked. "Yes," Molly replied indifferently. "I hope I didn't disturb you." "I'm not disturbing you," smiled the man. "It's okay," carelessly replied the girl. "Well, fine if it is fine," replied Thomas cheerfully. "I'll be gone all day today. I hope you can manage on your own and not give away our little deception," he said in a half whisper. "It's not a small one," Molly whispered back. "Okay, do you want cheesecakes and coffee?" she asked. "Homemade cheesecakes. That's what my mom makes me." "Of course I do." Thomas liked the cheesecake. It was cozy. Eating homemade cheesecakes and drinking coffee. Morning in the kitchen lit by sunlight. Breakfast was nestled behind the breakfast bar. It was atmospheric at the window, and Molly even forgot for a few seconds that this wasn't her life. This life she had stolen from a woman who had voluntarily left this world. "I'm sorry, I'm so ashamed." Thomas interrupted her thoughts. "Why?" Molly didn't understand. Well, for this, he nodded his chin toward her bruised arm. Molly was just wearing a t-shirt, and the bruises were clearly visible. "Ah, that yes, nothing hardly hurts anymore." Nonchalantly, she said, "I was just so afraid you'd leave, that you wouldn't agree. I don't usually hurt people with my finger. I won't hurt anyone." Thomas continued to justify himself. "Yeah, well, you have a grip of steel," agreed Molly. "What about your ulcer? Should I make you something more dietary?" "Oh, I don't care about it," Thomas replied. "Compared to what's going on, it's nothing." After breakfast, Thomas packed up and left on business, and Molly was left waiting anxiously for her daughter to wake up. Yeah, she was getting into character. It only took a day for her to start thinking of Anna as a daughter. Molly gave herself permission to feel that way, because she needed to get into the role as much as possible. When Anna woke up, Molly took her to wash her face, then to breakfast. She was pleased that the girl was happily gorging on her cheesecakes. Molly enjoyed listening to the girl's cheerful account, but every now and then a thought flashed through her mind. "Ah, the poor child. She really thinks I'm her mom." In the afternoon, they decided to go for a walk. Thomas warned them to stay away from people so they wouldn't meet anyone they knew. Word travels fast. A lot of people already know about what happened to Maria, and if a sudden encounter like this happens, no one is safe from a heart attack. Or just ask an inappropriate question to a child. Our people, they are often so not ceremonious, do not suffer from a sense of tact. So Molly took Anna for a walk in a deserted place to a small pond. The girl liked it here very much, and Molly was happy watching this cute little girl running on the soft green May grass, feeding ducklings, looking at lazy, barely awake insects. Walking with the baby, Molly realized that she hadn't felt so happy in a long time. But at the same time, it seemed to her that she was stealing happiness from another woman. Let already left this world, this woman does not mourn her daughter, and her things are worn by an imposter. It was uncomfortable to realize all of this, and Molly realized there was a lot she didn't know about the child. Like, is it okay to buy her ice cream? Or would she get an instant sore throat? Or would she get an allergy or something? And I wanted to make her happy, something I enjoyed myself. When I was a kid, I bought creamy ice cream in a cup, ate it, and was happy. "Mom, will you buy some? I've got popsicles." It's like the girl read her mind. Yeah, so there's ice cream. They probably do. Well, then I won't deny myself the pleasure of an Anna duck. I will not buy you a fruit ice, but a real good ice cream, Molly said with a smile. Have you ever eaten such a thing? Well, Anna hesitated. Actually, my grandmother bought it, but she told me not to tell you. I see. Well, now you're not the only one your grandmother will be buying you. With these words, Molly took the duck by the hand, and they went to the street seller of ice cream. Having received their pie, satisfied, Anna began to lick it with pleasure. Seeing how happy she was, Molly decided to get a cone with some bright flavor. She chose raspberry. They sat down on a bench in the shade of the alley and began to savor the cold treat. Molly was so engrossed that she almost missed the trouble coming at her. Well, it had to be one of their orderlies in the whole town to pick this particular spot for a walk with her family. Molly jumped up, grabbed Anna by the arm, and tried to pull her away. But the girl broke free and returned to the bench. "Mommy, I forgot my toy," loudly shouted the girl. Indeed, on the bench with a complete bewilderment on her face sat the indiscriminate toy. "Molly," loudly shouted the orderly. Ugh, Molly thought. Sterlitz had never been this close to failure. "Hi." "Aha, Nancy, I didn't recognize you. What's with the sudden makeover? Why don't I see you at work?" the nurse asked me with a smile. "It's just a couple days off my shift." Molly shrugged. She was so excited, she forgot to say hello. "We're in a hurry." "Sorry, Anna. Let's go home." "Mommy, can we still hang out here for soap?" "It's a girl." The nurse's eyes went wide. "Molly, when did you get here? I thought you had no husband and no kids, and here you have a ready child." The woman was surprised. But imagine how it happens in life. Molly laughed and grabbed Anna's hand and dragged her towards the exit from the park. The nurse remained perplexed, and Molly could already see how she was being discussed at work. But it was nothing. You could get away with it. Say, for example, that the girl is her distant relative, that they just with her played the mother's daughter. But how to justify to Anna that her mother suddenly turned from Maria to Molly? But Anna remained silent, never asking anything. Molly already thought that the girl just did not pay attention to it. Children, in general, have scattered attention spans, so it is not surprising. But in the evening at dinner, with an appetite flying away, not vegetarian cutlets, Anna suddenly gave out, "Dad, you can imagine, my mom and I were walking in the park, and some strange woman came up to us. She called Mom Molly and said she'd never had children at all. I was so scared, but my mom took my hand and pulled me away." Thomas literally shot Molly a look that made her uncomfortable, but she continued eating as if nothing had happened. "Yes," she nodded. "That woman is not right in the head. She's crazy and forgets everything." That's why I didn't argue with her, Anna realized. She's already forgotten that she saw us. And if she remembers, you could seem to her not a girl, but a boy, for example, this disease. Oh, Anna is upset. "I don't get that kind of disease." "You?" "No, it's rare," Molly promised. Thomas' gaze softened, but from the expression on his face, Molly realized that she was in for a head wash. And she wasn't wrong. "What did I ask you to do?" Thomas hissed when the two of them were alone in the bedroom. Molly recoiled in surprise. Yes, Thomas had shown his temper before, but she hadn't seen him this aggressive. "I ask you not to go out with her in public places." He gritted his teeth. "I remember," Molly nodded her head. "But this park is never crowded. I wanted the baby to breathe fresh air, not sit in a stuffy apartment all day. You almost ruined our whole plan." Thomas wouldn't let it go. "I'm beginning to doubt your judgment. Why should I be surprised? Who else could work in medicine? It's because of people like you, who can't do the basics, that the whole field collapses." Molly almost choked on her indignation. "So it's my fault." "And who is?" Thomas asked venomously. "Okay," Molly nodded her head. "I have to go to work tomorrow anyway. So I'll say goodbye to Anna and tell her that I have to leave, and she can take care of herself." "Well," Thomas shrugged. "That's what we agreed on for a couple of days. So tomorrow the bird will fly out of our way. That's all the thanks I get. Bitter. Molly grinned. Thanks will be on the nightstand tomorrow in an envelope, Thomas parried. They settled down on the bed. Each returned to his blanket and sniffled angrily. In the morning, Anna woke up with a sore throat. Shoulders now, threw Thomas irritably. Fed on ice cream. Now the baby is sick. I have to go to work today. Molly became indignant. I don't know anything. I'm nervous enough as it is. Everyone's got me on hold already. And there's a funeral. And you're the one throwing trouble around. Thomas wouldn't stop. Listen, Molly suggested. Why don't you take Anna to her grandmother's? Let her stay with her. Yeah, sure. You're making a mess with your ice cream about my mom. So Molly, there was nothing left to do. How could she take time off work and stay with the nanny? But admittedly, she wanted to be alone with the girl as long as possible. She was very fond of the little girl, especially when it was just the two of them. Molly liked to read books to the girl, draw with her, sculpt, and play hide and seek. Mommy, how much fun with you. The girl was happy. After a few days, there was no trace of the sore throat. Thomas hardly spoke to Molly. He only said that Maria had been buried. She had almost no relatives. And those who did lived so far away that they wouldn't come. Why would they? Who is she to them? She's the seventh water on the vine. That's why they were the closest ones. We quietly said goodbye to Maria. Anna doesn't even know about it. She thinks her mom's alive. Thomas. Molly whispered at dusk in the bedroom when they had both gone to bed. I think I've done my part. I guess it's time to say goodbye. I agree, Thomas muttered. Molly didn't think it would be so hard to part with Anna. The girl was crying, begging not to leave. Mommy, take me with you. I don't care where you go. I want to go with you, sobbed the girl. Well, honey, it's a very hard road. I've already taken a train ticket, and there's no more room. Molly took a ticket for you too. Mommy, can I go in my bag? Anna begged. No one will notice. Was Molly's heart breaking in her chest? No, honey, you can't. I'm sorry. I'll be back, promised Molly. And she hated herself for lying. Anna was sobbing. Thomas tried to comfort her. Can't you see? Can't you see? What are you doing to the child? He said angrily. Molly hastily kissed the girl and hurried away. It was unbearable. It was so hard to say goodbye to a little angel who had become family in that short period of time. But to stay any longer in the house of the woman whose fate she had taken, it makes no sense. The child will get used to her, and she to the child. And what? How long will it last? Sooner or later, we'll have to break up. And that would be even harder. Back in her apartment, Molly first of all put flowers, then brewed coffee and sat down at the table. Such a small apartment she has. It turns out that the furniture is so old and her whole life is so boring, not colorful. But not so long ago, Molly loved herself and her life. Of course, she lived poorly, but she had enough. Well, except for that stupid time she took out a loan for some reason. Other than that, everything was fine. But those few days of living with another woman had turned her upside down. The flow of unpleasant thoughts created a heavy noise in Molly's head, so she decided to go to work early to distract herself. There was a long shift ahead, and the nurse expected that in this whirlwind, there would be no time and energy for extraneous thoughts. But as soon as she arrived at the hospital, she realized she wasn't going to be able to relax today. Wow, Molly, what a transformation, huh? She heard compliments from coworkers and patients. I didn't realize you were so pretty. The surgeon smiled sweetly. Known for the entire department womanizer. Wow. Molly, what is this, your super fund? What, did you get rich or something? I can only imagine how much you paid for it. My wife wanted one of these, and it cost half her salary. The makeup looks good on you, Molly. He gritted his teeth. One of Molly's nurses had really put on makeup today. Looking in her own mirror at home, she realized something was missing. Either eyebrows or eyelashes. So just in case, I painted both. I also decided to make my lips more expressive. So she ended up with a pretty bright mic, which was not her usual look. Molly, what are you like today? Ah, you're giving me a heart attack, said an elderly patient. Molly responded to everyone with a smile or a thank you, but inside she was annoyed. It's not her who's being praised, it's Maria. Or is she Maria? Wow, where did that come from? Molly was completely confused. She didn't think it would be so hard to go back to her everyday life. But with each passing day, Molly became more and more comfortable with the idea that that strange experience was behind her. No longer does the fate of that family concern her. Of course, Anna is pitiful, but the psyche of children is abundant. They are capable of forgetting many things. Here, and she will soon forget her mother. Although now probably still crying, imagining a girl whose eyes are filled with tears. Molly wanted to get out of her seat and run to her. No, I had to change something in my life, otherwise the depression would linger. Moreover, summer is coming soon, and the loan is paid off, and there is money left. So you can live and enjoy the summer money with a clear conscience. Molly spent 2 weeks as if in a fog. Then one morning she woke up and said to herself, "That's it, that's enough. Stop thinking about Anna." Stop stopping herself every time. She wanted to dial Thomas to talk to the baby. After all, could a mom from a trip call her daughter to socialize, not the North Pole? Mom was away. But at the same time, she didn't know what Thomas' plan was for her, or if she would once again come across as rude aggressive this Thomas. Just remember the way he'd grabbed her by the arms when she'd wanted to force her to listen to him the day they'd met. No, better not to call, not to get in trouble. So Molly never called, and Thomas didn't call either. Maybe Anna had already forgotten her. And so one fine morning Molly woke up and decided that to get rid of her blonde, the more the roots began not to reverse, and the very color of the hair of the body. But that wasn't the main reason. The woman wanted to get rid of Maria's image and get herself back. She went to the shopping center to choose a good paint of the right shade, and at the same time to pick up some nice feminine trifles, and also wanted new pots for flowers, napkins for the kitchen, and something delicious. In general, to arrange a little relaxing shopping. Walking through the hypermarket, Molly caught herself in the thought that really began to distract. All the same stores are the first remedy in the fight against depression for women. Walking along the alley between the departments, Molly suddenly noticed the toy department. She used to pass by because she had no one to buy toys for, but now she decided to go in and look. She didn't know why. Molly never thought she'd meet her fake mother-in-law. And okay, she'd be alone, but the woman was a Sony duck. If it wasn't for the girl, Molly would have walked right by and not even recognized the woman she'd only seen on her phone screen. And the woman, though she would have noticed the resemblance to her dead sister-in-law, would also have chosen to pass silently by. But Anna, clutching to the chest of her ugly toy, immediately noticed Molly. "Mommy!" screamed the girl. The elderly lady didn't have time to react. Anna broke free and ran up to Molly, hugged her tightly. "Mommy, are you here yet? I missed you so much." Speaking quickly, the girl said, "Yes, honey, I'm here. I wanted to surprise you, to buy you something, but I couldn't do it," Molly said. When she looked up, she looked at the old woman. Her face was purple, and in her eyes read confusion. "Anna," she said, "I'm going to talk to Maria, your mom," she said. "No, I'm not leaving. I know you. I'll just go get the doll and Mom will run away." "No, I'll stay here," the girl insisted. "What's the matter, sweetie?" Molly smiled. "I'm not going anywhere. I promise you, honey, you know how much I missed you. You can't imagine." Thomas didn't wait long. Back in time. "You?" he asked in bewilderment. Molly lowered her eyes. For some reason she felt ashamed, even though she hadn't asked to return to this family. Thomas calmly told her mother, "We met by chance at the mall. What was to be done?" I had to tell her that Maria was back from a trip. "You idiot," Thomas hissed. "Who asked you to hang around the mall? What do you mean?" Molly resented such an unceremonious insult. I can't even go to the mall anymore. Daddy, Daddy. Anna's voice rang out. The adults immediately fell silent. Daddy, Mommy's finally here. I'm so happy. The girl was jumping for joy. It was Thomas' turn to lower his eyes. Yes, he said. Yes, Mommy's back. I'm very happy too. Naturally, Anna didn't let Molly go anywhere that evening, and she had to sleep with Thomas in the same bed again. Back in her blanket cocoon, Molly felt like she was back in her own bed, like her old life where she works as a nurse and lives in a simple apartment. It wasn't real. It's where she's been visiting for so many years, and this house belongs to her. This is her bedroom, her bed. It's just Molly's been away for a long time. I'm sorry, Thomas suddenly muttered, which Molly didn't understand and began to fidget in her cocoon. To turn to face him. He too was under the blanket, even though May was coming to an end. The nights were still cold. I apologize to you. That's what sighed Thomas was harsh with you. I can see how Anna was worried when you weren't around, but now she is happy and has fallen asleep peacefully. Why didn't you call? Molly asked. I hoped it would hurt. She'll get distracted, forget about it. You realize that it's impossible to play this show forever, Thomas explained. I regretted the whole thing. And basically, I was nervous. I was suspected of bringing these interrogations to my attention. And then the funeral, I was all twitchy. Yeah, I understand. It's not easy for you, Molly. That's the thing, it's not easy. And then there's my daughter crying all day long. My mom already told me to bring you back. She threatened to go to the hospital to look for you. She was against the idea at first. She still doesn't approve, but she says that once you start, you have to see it through. To what end? Molly asked. I don't know. To think of something. Thomas said, will you be able to stay with us? Can I? Molly agreed. I'm taking a legal vacation at work, so I'll stay with Anna without jeopardizing my own life. The main thing is not to forget to come home and water the flowers, because they felt bad last time without my supervision. Okay, agreed Thomas. Thank you. Since then, Thomas began to behave more gently towards Molly, and the girl did not know whether to be happy or sad. The kinder Thomas was to her, the happier she became in the role of another man's wife and mother. In communication with Anna, Molly often made mistakes, but each time she managed to get away with it without arousing suspicion. But the worst thing was that Molly was getting used to her role, to this house, to Thomas. She was even starting to arrange things in her own way, and she introduced some new rules into the household. Some things Thomas did not agree with and even protested strongly, and some things he took for granted, as if Molly really was the mistress here. But the strangest thing happened one night when Molly woke up to Thomas' touch. It was so unexpected that the woman froze, feeling frosty swirls along her spine. Deciding that Thomas was asleep and touching her in her sleep, she turned to face him to make sure. But it turned out that his eyes were open. How beautiful are you, Molly? He spoke softly. Molly. The woman was surprised. Thomas always called her Maria to avoid confusion in front of the baby. Yeah, you know, I can't fight myself anymore. I'm drawn to you, and I can't help it, Thomas explained. You're attracted to your wife, but she's dead. Don't forget, and me. I'm not the one who reminded Molly. Yes, you're very different. And if you're a copy of Maria outwardly, you're not at all alike, Thomas assured her. And I'm drawn to you, Molly. And every time I get into bed with you, it's like torture. Molly felt strange, as if fireworks were blooming inside. When Thomas put his hand on her thigh, she didn't object. And then everything happened on its own. In the morning, Thomas was especially gentle with Molly. Even though he was late for work, he made her coffee and toast, whipped cream and berries. No one had ever hosted a romantic breakfast for Molly before. Breakfast was usually expected. It felt good coming from her. Her heart fluttered inside. The only silver lining was the realization that this wasn't her life after all. She had no right to claim this man. Everything that happens is wrong. But how could she contain herself? She's so in love with Anna. She likes Thomas, and she likes family life. And if before she perceived this apartment as a theatrical scaffolding, now it was her home. All morning Molly was as if in a fog, smiling, seemingly without reason, but actually remembering the night spent with Thomas. Molly felt a surge of energy. There was so much she wanted to do. She decided to take up general cleaning. She'd been afraid to clean the closets, but now she felt like the boss. She decided to wash the curtains, wash the windows, organize her things. Anna followed her around like a tail. Trying to help, Molly gave her easy tasks. "Honey, look how dirty Kuzmenko is. Why don't we wash it with you?" Molly suggested. Washing with bewilderment, interrogated the girl. "You said yourself that Kuzmenko is afraid of water. He cannot drink anything. He cannot bathe." "Yes, I said that." Molly felt that she was again confronted with Maria's worries. "I had to get out of it. Well, now he's cured of his fear of water. Everything's different now. We wash him gently." Molly took the toy and carried it into the bathroom. "I can't look at it," Anna exclaimed and ran to her room. "How weird is that?" Molly thought and took the ugly toy to the bathroom. "I should flush you down the toilet or throw you out the window." She addressed the toy in her mind. It looked at her reproachfully with its red eyes. "Okay, the toy may be scary, but at least it should be clean." Molly took the scary bream to the bathroom and began to think about what to do with it. Hand wash it in the machine, or just wash it on top. After thinking, the woman decided to still send the freak to the machine, secretly hoping that the soulless technique will spoil the unsightly toy. But first Molly decided to probe the unfortunate toy, suddenly inside to fill a crevice, which will take skates during washing. She did it more to clear her conscience, like, "I checked everything. And if something went wrong, it wasn't her fault." Probing the toy, Molly finds something hard inside, that it's some kind of object, a broken sound mechanism. And then you definitely can't send her to the machine. If the electronics are broken, then let it be through no fault of his. Molly decided to sell the toy and get the object, and then to wash it, taking in the locker manicure and scissors. The girl cut the cloth and saw a fluffy white filling, sticking her hand in. Molly fumbled for the object and extracted it. What was her surprise when she found that she had extracted a camera? Molly twirled the camera in her hands, puzzled. Where did she come from? She decided to see if Toy was keeping any more secrets. The woman rummaged again and fumbled for the package. Inside were sheets of paper written in uneven handwriting, more like a woman's. They were notes. Molly unfolded one. "If you are reading this, I am no longer alive. Know that the cause of my death was my husband Thomas. He systematically and stubbornly drove me to this decision. He'd like to kill me with his own hands, but he's a coward, so he's busy driving me crazy." Molly's insides went cold. It was a note left by Maria and hidden in her daughter's toys that she asked the child to never part with. Molly unfolded another sheet and found an equally ominous message inside. "My husband is an actor and a skilled manipulator. He is spying on me. I can't download a single app on my phone. Everything I download has spyware in it. Bottom line is he knows where I am, who I'm with, and what I'm doing. I've never lied to him. But the realization that I can't be alone with myself is unnerving. Why is he peeping? He thinks I'm cheating." Molly was creeped out reading these lines, but she continued, "Thomas, if you found this note before anyone else, or if you were given it, then you are responsible for my death. Be glad you got what you wanted. I don't know why you hate me so much, but you made it look so good. So now they think I'm crazy. And you're so white and fluffy. What do you want with my money? You can have my inheritance all you want. Just let me go." Next note. "I once saw a Gaslight movie about an Alfonso trying to drive his wife crazy and take her money. That's what Thomas is up to. He, too, turns on a tape with strange noises and says he can't hear anything. He hides my stuff and then claims it was never in our house. Or I've lost it somewhere. or he'll say something, and then he'll say he never said it. He wants to drive me to my grave, and I can't go anywhere because he'll find me, and then he'll do something terrible. But I'm most afraid for Anna. I can't imagine what he could do to her. On the outside, he seems so nice, so friendly. Everyone loves him. But I'm the only one who knows how aggressive he is and what he's capable of. Another leaf. Somebody save me from this beast. Thomas, the domestic tyrant. He abuses me, and no one believes me. He's stalking me, watching video from city cameras, monitoring me through my phone and through my laptop. In recommendations, he slips me videos and movies with hidden messages encrypted in them that are meant to bring me to the worst of it. In the evenings, I have panic attacks. I'm scared of the walls. The ceiling, everything shrinks. I'm short of breath. And then there's the note the psychiatrist is in cahoots with Thomas. For money, he prescribes me pills that are supposed to turn me into a vegetable. Thomas is forced to take the pills. With him, I learn to hide them between my cheek and my teeth. So when I open my mouth to show that the pill has been swallowed, Thomas doesn't notice anything. Then I drink the pill down the toilet, which keeps my mind sober. Another piece of paper. Thomas the liar. He's not who he says he is. He's a narcissist. He'll do terrible things to Anna. That was the last note. Molly only now realized how much her legs were shaking. Scary. Very scary. Poor Maria. What was she going through? Of course, much of what she wrote sounds like nonsense. But it's true that a life of shame can be maddening. Molly charged the camera and, opening the display, began to watch the videotape. On the screen was Maria. That is, a woman who looked a lot like Molly. And it was eerie to look at. Her face was contorted with fear and despair, and she was saying pretty much the same thing she'd written in the notes. Molly noted that their voices didn't sound alike, and how Anna believed that Molly was her mom. The clip ended, and Molly switched to the next one. Maria appeared again, but she was in a terrible state. Beaten up, nose bleeding. Thomas beat me up. I can't prove anything. Maria sobbed. Molly had heard many stories of men who abused their wives, literally destroying their personalities. Apparently, it was the same story here. Yes, Thomas was harsh with her too. He bruised her arms on the first day they met, and then growled at her because Anna was sick. There's something wrong with him. Poor Maria, she was so afraid for her daughter. The only thing to do is to go to the police, to give them the fine. After all, Thomas was suspected of seducing her, apparently, not on the spot. Molly decided to act immediately. You can't leave a child with this monster until he's home from work. There is time to run away and go to the police. Taking Anna then, of course, taking the gym bag with her, the woman hastily threw things in there. Anna, Mommy, are you leaving? Asked the frightened girl. No, sweetie, no. We're going away together. A little trip to the countryside. The woman, Anna, reassured her. Do you remember where all our documents are? You're a smart girl. You know everything. Of course, Mommy. The documents are over there in that closet, in a big box in the form of a book. Thank you, my baby. Molly was happy. She quickly found the papers and put them in her bag. Mommy toy. I'm not going without a toy, a girl said. No, sweet toy, we won't take him. Toy is sick, Molly explained. Anna was clearly upset. She was not used to leaving the house without her toy. She felt uncomfortable. Molly changed the girl's clothes, threw a couple of the first toys she could find into her bag, so she could distract the child, and hurried out of the apartment. At first, the woman was going to go straight to the police, but then she decided it was too risky. And what would she say? So she decided to dial the number of an old acquaintance with whom she went on a date after communicating over the internet. Hello, George. Yeah, it's Molly. Remember me? Of course I remember, Molly. Something's come up. Yes, I need to meet you on a very sensitive matter. Okay, but just so you know, I'm married now. Oh, congratulations. but that's not what I meant at all. There's a crime here. Uh-oh. But I'll wait for you. I'll text you the address. I can't come pick you up myself, unfortunately. Urgent matters, Molly went to the specified address and got straight to George at work, despite being busy. The investigator received Molly with a smile. "Molly, how nice to see you." He smiled. "Yes, and I was afraid you had taken offense at me." "I was at risk with you," Molly replied, referring to the conversation when she reproached the man for not communicating with his child. "No, I'm not angry with you. On the contrary, I'm very grateful to you for opening my eyes. It shook me to my senses. I thought about what I was missing and talked to my wife. Upon receiving a rejection, I threatened her with a lawsuit. I am a parent like her and have the right to see my child." She reluctantly agreed. "Started talking to my son. You know, I realized how much fun I was missing. My son quickly got used to me and became attached to me. At first, just for walks he took him, entertained him in the store to buy something, and then my wife melted allowed to visit him. She didn't have a good personal life. Neither did I. What feelings are there left? Especially since I changed, and she started to soften. She understood me better. Anyway, we decided to keep our selfishness to ourselves. And for the sake of my son, we rebuilt the family. And now we not only live together, but we have a second child. We're waiting." "That's it. That's great." Molly exhaled. Like in the TV series, the heroes come together. They split up, but in the end they're happy. "Yeah," George agreed. "And I know it had some effect." Molly smiled. "Well, I cannot yet boast of a personal life, but I have a lot of adventures." "Spill it," George nodded. Molly pointed at Anna, and the man realized in front of the child cannot. Tatiana Alexeyevna called him at, opening the door to the adjoining office. "You behind the child for about 5 minutes 10 will not review." Having received an affirmative answer, he sent the girl to the next room. "Go there, Aunt Tanya has cookies, delicious candy. Go." When Anna came out, Molly showed her the camera, as well as Maria's notes, and told the whole story in detail, starting from that very morning, when a woman who came out of her apartment window came to their emergency room. George listened, frowning and rubbing his chin. "Yes, it's a murky story," George agreed. "But what's worse is that you stole the child. It's necessary to bring the girl home." "You what?" Molly was horrified. "That Thomas, he's a wolf in sheep's clothing. He could do anything to her. Maria must have had some money. Maybe her apartment, or maybe some inheritance. And he wanted to get his hands on it all. Everything has to be checked," George said firmly. "I can't trust notes and videos." "How can you not?" Molly was surprised. "But here she is beaten up. Here she is describing how he's trying to drive her crazy. And she hides the notes and videos because she can't trust anyone. And she's terrified her husband will find them. She's got it all figured out. She hid the evidence in her daughter's toys and told her not to let it go. She also said the toy was afraid of water. That doesn't mean anything," George said thoughtfully. "Everything needs to be checked. How many such stories are there when a woman asks for help? She claims her husband beat her, and they don't believe her. She ends up dying at his hands. Like in this case, Molly was outraged. Yes, alas, it happens too. But it can also happen the other way around. So I'm telling you again, we need to check it out. Take the baby home and stay in touch. I'll make it quick. Don't worry." I tried to reassure the woman. "Well, thanks for that." Molly sighed and unceremoniously, opening the door of the neighboring office, called Anna. "Come on, baby." Anna ran out to meet Molly, brushing cookie crumbs off her dress. "Are we leaving already?" she asked. "Yes, we are," Molly replied. And grabbing her hand, she hurriedly led her to the exit. "Stay in touch. I'll check everything," George said loudly after her. Molly didn't answer. She hoped that George would do something immediately, call the police, and have Thomas captured. He must answer for what he had done. But male solidarity, as always, played its part. What to do? Molly thought. For starters, she decided to stop by her apartment, and while Thomas had not had the strength to pack some of her things, take the money and water those unfortunate flowers. For their sake, Molly made occasional visits to her apartment, but it was much less often than necessary. Anna absolutely refused to go to kindergarten. She was very afraid to stay without her mother again. So one day Molly even had to take her with her, gathering that they were going to an acquaintance who was on vacation and asked to water the flowers. "Oh, Mommy," Anna said then. "You know, and it smells like you in here." And then Anna shuddered. Yes, indeed. What about the smell? For example, as a child, she always remembered what her beloved mother smelled like. It was a delicate, sweet fragrance, unmistakable. And no other woman smelled like that. And when little Molly would tell her mom about it, she would laugh, answering, "Oh, my goodness, I don't smell anything." So Maria must have smelled special to Anna. How a girl could mistake a strange woman for her own mother is a mystery. And now, when they came to Molly's apartment again, Anna was very happy. It was cozy and smelled delicious. Molly wanted to go to the village to her great-aunt on her mother's side. She wanted to stay there until everything calmed down, so that Anna could breathe the air. But there's no way to leave unnoticed on the train. She needs someone to take her. The only person who could do that. Molly is a friend, or rather, her husband. We couldn't stay at home. Thomas would be the first thing to look for her here. So, taking everything she needed, she hurried out of the apartment. Anna was upset. She wanted to stay longer. "Mommy, where are we late? I'm already tired," complained the girl. "Be patient, sweetie. We'll be visiting Aunt Nancy soon." Molly comforted her. She tried to walk in the back alleys to avoid the cameras. Maria's words came to mind. Thomas is looking at the security cameras. Yeah, with the right amount of money and the right desire, you can get access to the footage on the camera, especially if you involve the police, accusing the wife of inappropriate behavior that threatens the life and health of the child. In that moment, Molly felt a kinship with Maria like never before. She understood how this poor driven woman, whom no one believed, felt. After thinking for a moment, Molly decided to disconnect the phone. They might find her that way. Yes, George had said to stay in touch, but he didn't seem to believe her or poor Maria, so it was useless to keep in touch with him. Of course, to come to her friend uninvited and with such requests was not nice, but Molly decided that it was friendship to help in difficult situations. So she called Nancy's apartment. Luckily, she was home. Molly thoughtfully did not call her on the phone because the service provider could take a printout of calls and then check the people Molly called. She didn't want to expose herself like that. "Molly, what's wrong? Are you off the phone?" Nancy said in surprise. Molly hissed back, making scary eyes. "I'm Maria. What did you forget?" Dazed Nancy stepped aside, letting Molly and the girl into the hallway. "Let's go to the balcony," Molly commanded. "And you, Anna, come and sit in the kitchen. There's a cat over there. His name is Toy, too, by the way." With a wave of her hand to Nancy, Molly led her out onto the balcony. "They won't hear us," she clarified. "They shouldn't. It's soundproofed," Nancy said thoughtfully. "But do you close the window?" Molly whispered. Nancy obediently closed the sashes behind the glass balcony. "Molly, you're scaring me," said Maria's friend. Molly reminded her in a whisper. Then she began to tell the whole story from beginning to end. "Wait, I need a smoke," said Nancy and opened the window and leaned out into the street. Yes, Molly reached the smell of tobacco, which she was not very fond of. "Sleep here tonight. We'll go tomorrow." "There's no way we can do it sooner," Molly begged. "No, I'm sorry, but don't worry. No one will know you're here." Nancy fed the uninvited guests dinner and put them to bed. Molly slept well, not undressed for the night. Anna didn't develop either. The woman's nerves were taut as a string. She shuddered at every rustle and listened with bated breath to the sounds of cars driving away. In the morning, Alex, Nancy's husband, returned from work. He briefly retold the story quietly, so that Anna would not hear. "All right," he agreed. "He'll drive." Suddenly, Molly again heard the sound of a car driving by and looked out the window. She was horrified to find Thomas's car. It was him. She shrieked, "Hurry up and run." "Too late, Molly," Nancy said calmly. She didn't get it. "How is Nancy you? You're the one who ratted us out." "I'm sorry, but Anna's missing persons report went viral on social media last night. I pretended to go out on the balcony to smoke. I actually called the number on the ad." "But how could you do that? We are friends," Molly said, disappointed. "Yes, we're friends, so I'm doing what's best for you so you don't get in trouble. I don't know what's going on with you, but you're acting inappropriately. And if you hurt the baby, you're in very, very big trouble." In desperation, Molly grabbed the car keys that Alex had carelessly left on the nightstand. "Stay back," she bellowed, holding the key up like a knife. "Otherwise, I'll tell Nadia about the coffee shop." Nancy arched an eyebrow. A confused Alex tried to say something, but nothing but stuttering came out. Molly almost gave away his biggest secret. He was cheating on his wife with a lady, and Molly caught their date in a cafe. Alex begged her not to tell Nancy, and she decided she had no right to pry into their lives. Who knows, maybe Nancy is comfortable ignoring her adultery and her spouse. But now that information is more useful than ever, taking advantage of the spouse's interference, Molly grabbed Anna by the arm, grabbing her bag with her other hand. And wearing only the house slippers that Nancy had given her, she ran out into the stairwell. The girl was shoeless and wearing only socks. Fortunately, the house in which Nancy lived was arranged in such a way that the elevator and the stairwell were separated from each other, being on opposite sides. So Molly rushed down the stairs, dragging a frightened Anna behind her. Running up to the car was Alex. Molly opened the door, shoved then into the back seat, and hastily buckled herself in. Then sat down behind the wheel and started trying to start the car. It turned out that it's not so easy to negotiate with someone else's car. The car wouldn't start. Suddenly, Molly heard the beeping of the intercom. The door opened, and Thomas jumped out like a scalded man. After looking around, he noticed Molly and Anna in the car and rushed over to them. Molly barely had time to press the door lock button. "Get out!" Thomas yelled like a madman and started pounding on the glass with his fist. Molly desperately shook her head and tried to start the car again. "Anna, Anna," shouted Thomas, rushing to the back door and trying to open it. "Daddy's for Henna." "Girl, you're all right, sweetheart," shouted the man. "It's all right," answered Anna through her tears. "Give me the baby," Thomas begged. "Molly, damn you. Come on, give me the baby and go on your way. You won't get hurt, I promise." "No, I know this is all your fault," shouted Molly. And at that moment, the car started and sped away. Anna burst into tears even more. And Molly thought only about one thing, that she would soon drive away in the rearview mirror. She saw Thomas rush to his own car to give chase. Good thing he didn't bring the police with him. Probably wanted to settle this quietly, because he had his nose to the grindstone. Molly didn't have her own car, and she'd gotten her license a long time ago with a friend. Sometimes they let her drive, so she wouldn't lose her skills, because it was a shame. Spent money and time on training. And if it was an ordinary day of driving around the city, Molly would probably drive very carefully, causing irritation of other motorists with her slowness. But now she was chasing as hard a loop as she could so that Thomas would lose sight of her. The enraged pursuer was sitting tightly on her tail, and the woman was already thinking that she would not be able to get away from him. But thankfully, he had finally fallen behind. It was possible to relax a bit and catch her breath. By this time, Molly was already out of the city limits and racing down the highway. Anna lounged in the back seat. Her cheeks showed the wet paths left by her tears. "How are you, sweetie, worried?" Molly asked. "You're not my mom, are you?" quietly asked the girl. What was Molly afraid of? "What are you saying?" "Honey, I'm saying you're not my mom. It's my fault. On my birthday, I made a wish for my mom to change, to act normal, like all moms do. I love her very much, but she used to scare me a lot and make me eat salad. I wanted my mom to be different, and I was punished for it. My real mom flew out the window, and they replaced her with you. They thought I wouldn't notice, but I did. But I had so much fun with you. You were so good. And now you're scaring me. I'm scared. I don't know where you're taking me. Come on, honey. Nothing's going to happen. I love you very much. Molly was dumbfounded by the girl's revelations. She was so surprised that for a while she lost her vigilance and did not notice that an unknown black car was following her. Molly sped up, but it was too late. The car overtook her and blocked the road. Molly was not an experienced driver, so she did not risk giving out dashing maneuvers. Stopping, she gave herself over to fate. The door of the black car opened, and George stepped out. Molly was relieved. "Get out," he ordered Molly to gesture. The woman had no choice but to obey. "Are you crazy?" George stated. "I was only saving a child," Molly objected. "From who?" "From her own father. I checked everything out, Molly. I contacted a psychiatrist. Maria found out about her family. Unfortunately, there's a hereditary condition. She really wasn't herself, but because Thomas took pity on her and kept her at home, instead of sending her to the hospital, once again, her condition worsened. Delusions of persecution I've heard of. She wasn't on the pill, you know. So she started making up nonsense, like she refused to eat meat because she was convinced that Thomas was poisoning her food with microdoses of poison that activate when it interacts with animal protein. That's what her psychiatrist told me. Yeah, she wrote that no one believes her, and all the arguments are on Thomas's side, and that he and the psychiatrist were in cahoots, but somehow it was justified that he beat her up, and that she inflicted those beatings on herself. Even on the video, it looks like it was left-handed, and he's right-handed. Plus, when Maria was admitted to the hospital, it was the first time she had self-inflicted injuries on her chart. Molly, wake up. It's hereditary. And her dead mother had similar problems, and her family didn't have any money. Thomas Maria took a beggar. Molly, I contacted Thomas, talked him into finding you so he wouldn't call the police on you. Why haven't you been in touch? I called you. What are you doing? You scared the baby out of your mind, said Thomas, gestured to Anna, who was sitting obediently in the back seat. Molly looked around and saw Thomas' car pulling up beside them. The car stopped, and he jumped out of it like a scalded man. His lips were tightly pressed together, and his eyes were filled with anger. Thomas started to Molly, but Molly gestured to him to stop her. Don't you dare talk to me, and don't you dare come near my baby. Be thankful I didn't call the cops on you. Anna, girl, are you all right? He asked, pulling his daughter out of the back seat. Yes, Daddy, everything is fine, answered the crying Anna. Thomas gently took her in his arms and carried her to his car. I just wanted to save her. Molly shouted after her. Thomas stopped and turned around with hatred. He looked in her direction. Then he put the child in the car, got in, backed up to make a U-turn, and got out of Molly's car and shouted out the window. I never realized never to go near my daughter again. Thomas and Anna drove away, and a powerless Molly collapsed to the ground. George fetched water from his car. Come on, Molly, wake up. Don't be a freak. The woman struggled to her feet, her knees and hands shaking. George offered to drive her home, but she refused, saying she had the strength to get back. They stood on the road for a while longer. There are so many stories like this, where the man is a tyrant, abuses the woman, and she can do nothing. So I believed it. I fed myself to Molly. There's a lot of stories like that, but this is not that story. And I'm not saying that women slander their husbands. It's just that everything needs to be checked out. And I did. You should be glad Thomas didn't file a complaint against you. Imagine if some woman stole his baby. Do you know how he felt? Yes, I do, Molly sighed. The way back seemed an awfully long way. Molly felt lousy. She was tormented by guilt for Anna. You'd have to be stupid to scare a child like that. She has a very delicate psyche, especially if the mother and grandmother have such a history. It's amazing how the doctors agreed to do Maria echo. Thomas must have kept that information from them, and there's nothing a private clinic won't do for money. But how did he agree to conceive a child with a woman like that? It doesn't make any sense. As Molly pulled up in front of Nancy and Alex's driveway, she called her friend. She came down. The husband chickened out after her guiltily, still looking at his wife and her friend. "Here are the keys and sorry about that," said Molly. "Thanks for not wrecking the car," replied Nancy. "I hope you realize we don't want to see you again. We've had enough trouble." With an affirmative nod, Molly headed away from their house. "Hey," Nancy called out to her. "What's up with the coffee shop?" Molly stopped and looked around. Alex was all hunched over and looking miserable. She shrugged her shoulders. Molly blurted it out. First thing that popped into her head, "Goodbye." When Molly got home, the first thing she did was take a bath. She wanted to wash away everything that had happened to her. Then she got into bed and tried to sleep. Tiredness spread throughout her body, but sleep wouldn't come. Then the woman got up, dressed, and went outside. When she reached the first hairdresser's shop, located on the first floor of an old house in the back, Molly went inside and asked if she could get a new haircut. She replied unhappily, "We usually have an appointment. I didn't have time to sign up, so you can help me." "All right, have a seat. But we usually have people bring their own paint. I don't have much of a choice here. I'm not gonna make you a block. I don't need it. I want it dark. What do you have?" "I have only frosty chestnut," thoughtfully said the hairdresser, pulling out a box of paint. "That'll do," Molly agreed, "but you didn't even look at the color." "Then don't tell me you wanted something else." "I won't," Molly said. "Meet the browns and into your auburn." "Why did you suddenly decide to change your color?" the hairdresser asked. "Expensive. Blonde has become a blonde." "Yes," Molly replied indifferently. "Well, yes, I see that you have the root from the roses. How? And the color is already so bad. I don't know who wanted you, but that's okay. We'll make you look pretty." Molly got a bad haircut, and the color is frosty. The chestnut made her hair look like a wig, but Molly didn't care. The main thing was that now she looked less like Maria, and the book on this story could be closed forever. The vacation was over, and Molly went to work. She tried not to think about Anna. Why, it's someone else's child who has a caring father. And he, as experience has shown, is ready to cut the throat of anyone who would encroach on the safety of his favorite daughter. So you don't have to worry about Anna. Molly tried her best to live her usual life, but still something in her forever changed. Colleagues noted that Molly became more confident, but at the same time tough, and that she became much more attractive as a woman. There was a zest in her that had never been there before. No one could explain what it was. Perhaps it was the pregnancy that had affected her. The night spent with Thomas had taken its toll. Molly didn't immediately realize there was something wrong with her. She didn't pay attention to her cycle. What's so surprising when she'd been through so much stress? But then she started to be attracted to strange smells. For example, she loved the smell of all kinds of construction tools. She'd go to the tool store to savor the aroma. She also started to faint when she stood on her feet for long periods of time, putting two and two together. Molly decided to get checked out and discovered she was pregnant. There was no question of whether or not to have the baby. Of course she would. As it happened, let it be her little meaning in life. Fate took Anna away from her, the one she'd grown so attached to. But in return, she gave her own child the experience of pregnancy and childbirth. To enjoy the process of caring for the baby and go through all the stages of development together with him. Perhaps that's why Molly's eyes were so bright. "Molly, is your husband here to see you?" a nurse told me. "He's waiting for you in the lobby by the palm tree. By the way, I didn't know you were married." Molly mumbled again, feeling a sense of unpleasant déjà vu as she resisted the urge to run away. Molly did take the elevator down to the first floor and made her way to the huge financial palm tree, which, judging by its size, was feeling at ease. Wide stomped into the branches in different directions, Molly said in a puzzled manner, seeing a man with a large bouquet of flowers. Yes, I answered him with a smile. It was Thomas. His face was calm. His gaze was soft. "These are for you," he said, handing over the bouquet. "In honor of what?" Molly asked, puzzled. She took it slowly. "It looks good on you," Thomas said, pointing at Molly's haircut and new hair color. "Thank you." Dryly, the woman replied, "Molly, you and I have had a discussion, and we'd really like you to come back." Molly didn't expect that, so she couldn't hide her surprise. Yeah. I remember that I was categorical when we talked to you last time. But you understand me too. I come home, you're gone. And Anna's toy, which she doesn't part with for a second, lunges like she's been attacked by a maniac. I can't reach you. Good thing George called me. We met and talked about how to proceed and how to find you. He knew right away you were going to the village, because where else would you hide? I'm surprised he remembered my stories about the village. Molly said, "We didn't talk to him that much. But what do you want?" It's his profession to memorize little things. And then, when I saw what notes Maria wrote and what she videotaped, I understood you to some extent. And then I had this phrase in my head. You said you wanted to save the coin. When the passions subsided, I realized that for Anna it became a real mother, and for me a wife. Molly was dumbfounded by this news. Only just her life had settled into an adequate framework. There was a purpose to the plans for the future. And Thomas with one visit ruins everything, or on the contrary, tries to build. Molly took some time to think. On the one hand, she wanted to end this story. On the other hand, she carried Thomas's child under her heart and hardly had the right to leave him without a father. Several agonizing days passed, during which Molly weighed the pros and cons. Finally, she dialed Thomas' number and gave her final answer. "Yes, I'll take you up on your offer. But if anything goes wrong, I'll leave right away." After the experience, all three of them had to rebuild their relationship. And even though they say you can't fix a broken cup, Molly realized that wasn't true. In fact, anything can be glued back together. It's all about desire. And they had it. Thomas and Molly were officially married. At first, the woman was very afraid that the recent adventures will negatively affect Anna's psyche. But fortunately, this did not happen. On the contrary, the girl every day became more and more cheerful and open. Her favorite toy was stitched up and washed. No longer did he keep any secrets in darkness. Anna became much less afraid. And with the birth of her baby brother, her little sister felt like an adult. She diligently helped Molly, whom she affectionately called Mommy.